Dan Cooney was much more than a teammate to me. He was one of my best friends. Although I didn't meet him until my freshman year of high school, the bond that we created was strong enough to last a lifetime. Unfortunately, on April 9th, 2017, everything changed. I was awoken at about 9 a.m. by multiple phone calls and text messages from friends and family. I finally got on the phone with my dad, and he told me not to be scared, but he and my mom were waiting outside my dorm room for me. Before I could say anything, he said that Dan had passed away early this morning. It was suicide. I didn't know how to react or what to even say at this point. I was feeling confused, angry, and just simply heartbroken. I thought to myself, this has to be some kind of sick dream. Dan was one of the happiest people I knew. How could he take his life just like that? I learned that Dan went out with some friends he'd made at Babson College in Massachusetts the night before. His sister, Brooke, received a phone call from him early in the morning on April 9th. He told her that he loved her and always would no matter what. She immediately told her dad, Sean, and he knew that something was wrong. He tried calling Dan, but there was no answer. He got in the car and drove to the school, but it was too late. Dan had drove to a nearby train station and jumped in front of an oncoming train. To this day, no one knows what prompted him to do so. We just know that he was suffering. I returned home for the funeral and usual services that occur. The coming weeks were all really a blur to me. I couldn't understand or really comprehend the fact that I had just lost a brother. Emotions were running high, and I remember not even being able to look his immediate family in the eyes at first. His parents, Sean and Nan, were sobbing uncontrollably as family and friends tried their best to console them. His sister, Brooke, I couldn't even begin to understand the pain she was in, having just lost her best friend and brother. The funeral mass and service were beautiful. The Irish bagpipes played a soothing melody, while many people spoke about the wonderful times they shared with Dan. However, the service was over before everything really sunk in. Now it was time for everyone to reflect and begin the long healing process. I, along with everyone else, was sad at first. I thought about the things I could have done to show him how much I cared and just how much he was loved. I think it's natural to feel this way, like we're somewhat responsible when tragedies like this occur. However, I think everyone involved was lucky to have such a great support system around them. Now I'd like to take you back to his childhood and high school days, the times when I really got to know who he really was. Dan grew up in Verona, New Jersey, and had a great life. He had a family who loved him and friends who adored him. Although I didn't know him at this time, it's easy to tell from these pictures that he was a very happy-go-lucky kid. He started playing baseball at a young age and quickly developed skills that would turn him into the outstanding player that he was. Our paths would eventually cross our freshman year of high school at St. Peter's Prep. It was time for tryouts, and everyone was eager to prove themselves worthy to play for such a prestigious program. Nerves were through the roof for practically everyone there, but I noticed that one kid in particular seemed unusually calm. Of course, it was Dan. A week of tryouts came and went, and before I knew it, we were teammates. From the first day of practice, I could see that Dan was a leader. He was kind, yet confident in himself and his abilities. It was through baseball that we eventually became best friends. Senior year of high school was approaching, and at that point, we knew everything about each other, from what made the other tick to how to cheer the other up when they were down. We were named co-captains that year and were fully committed to making our final high school season count. Although we were co-captains, I always looked up to him. He was the hardest worker on the field, and that energy truly rubbed off on the rest of the team. As long as we had Dan, we never felt like we were out of the fight. But it went far beyond baseball with Dan. He was the kind of person you couldn't help but love. He had a very down-to-earth personality that automatically lifted you no matter how you were feeling that day. He always put others before himself, which I think was a defining characteristic. He had a passion for the game, but more importantly, he had a passion for people. You would never hear him talk down about anyone, regardless of the situation. He was the same exact person every single day, and that is hard to find nowadays. This is how I choose to remember Dan Cooney. I refuse to ever think of him as someone who was suffering, because that's just not the experience I had with him. He was there for me and others regardless of what was going on in his life. He taught me how to be real with people, how to treat them, and simply how to fully live life. Ironic, isn't it? You never really know what's going on in someone's life, but these are things that I will never truly be able to thank him for enough. Dan helped shape me into the person I am today, and I owe a lot of the things I have accomplished to him. When things get tough, don't ever quit. Try even harder. When you're having a bad day, so what? Accept them for what they are and keep moving forward. I, along with many others, choose to celebrate the good times we had with him in his 19 years of life. I continue to believe that Dan impacted more people in this short amount of time than many people will in their whole life. Although he may not be here physically, his spirit and love will continue to be with me until my time is up. He was truly a one-of-a-kind son, brother, friend, and person, and that is something worth celebrating. As time goes on, I can rest just a little bit easier knowing that he's finally happy in heaven. Even though his time with us was cut short, his legacy and story will live on and be told forever. Take something as simple as a cardinal, for instance. I believe that the presence of a cardinal signifies the presence of a loved one. Every time one appears, I get just a little bit of joy knowing that he is up there watching over me. Personally, this is just a little reminder that life is worth living, and even in his passing, he's always with me.